Good morning, first graders. Happy Monday. I hope you had a wonderful weekend and you were able to enjoy the weather, even though it was kind of cold, but also that you got to enjoy some time with your family. Today, we're going to read our morning message, go over our calendar, and then we're going to continue to talk about clocks and how to read half past using a digital clock. Okay? And then I'll read a new chapter in our Charlotte's Web. So let's get started. Good morning, first graders. Today is Monday, May 11th, 2020. You will tell the half-hour time using a digital clock. Have a marvelous Monday. Love, Mrs. Rochat. Let's go over here. Yesterday was Sunday, today is Monday, tomorrow will be Tuesday. It is going to be a spring day, partly cloudy, with a little wind. Let's sing our money song. A penny is one, a nickel is 5, a dime is 10, and a quarter's 25. If you look at our clock here, this is an analog clock. We've been working a lot with these, and we know the big numbers count as our hour, and these little blue numbers count as our minutes. Well, when we're looking at a digital clock, it shows us the numbers. So if we look at our hour hand, it's in between, I'm going to draw little dots. It's in between the 3 and the 4. And that tells my brain that I need to go back. And that's the hour that it is. So it says 3, and then this is pointing to the 6, which means half past, which means 30. So on our clock, this is how it's written digitally. Digitally means with numbers. So this says 3:30. Today in our math lesson, we're just going to be practicing looking at a clock like this, but writing it digitally like this. Remember, the hour comes first, then we have our 2 dots in the middle, and then our numbers, our 2 numbers side by side for the minutes, whether that's 00 for o'clock, or like today when we're practicing half past, we're using the number 30 because halfway around the clock is 30 minutes. Let's go ahead and get started on learning a little bit more about how to read digital clocks. Okay, so time to the half hour using a digital clock. You can see the cell phone. A lot of cell phones have digital time, and you can see the 30, but the number for the hour is missing. So Tyler's football practice ends half hour past 4. What number would we write on the digital clock inside the phone? Great job. We would write the number 4 because half past 4 o'clock means that the time should show 4:30. If you did not write the number 4, erase and go ahead and write it now. Remember, the hour is 4. Okay, a digital clock can also show time to the half hour. Now both the clocks show half past. If you look at the analog clock, it is showing that it is halfway around the clock by looking at the long hand. And on the digital clock, it is showing that 30 minutes means that it is half past 6 o'clock. And both are showing 6:30. So both of the clocks show half past. Go ahead and trace the numbers. Okay, use these clocks to show the time. Tell what time is shown and write the time on the digital clock. So you'll look at the analog clock on the top, figure out what time it is, and write it in the digital clock below. In problem 1, it's showing half past 1. What does that look like? Well, I would write the 1 first, and then 30 for half past. Problem 1 is 1:30. Problem 2 is 8:30, problem 3 is 11:30, and problem 4 is 3:30. Write your answers. For this page, I would like you to practice on your own. Tell what time is shown and write the time on the digital clock below the clock that you see. So for problems 5 through 10, go ahead and try to figure out what the time says. Remember, it's half past. And remember that clue that I gave you with looking at the shorthand. If it's in the middle, you go back. Solve and write the time on the digital clock. Mrs. Johnson's class has art at 9:30. It lasts 1 hour. What time does art class end? 9 plus 1 is 10. So what time would it be if it was 9:30? 1 hour later would make it, write your answer. Aiden's school choir stopped singing at 3:30. They sang for 2 hours. What time did they start singing? 3 take away 2, or 3 o'clock take away 2 hours equals what time? Write it on your clock. Now here's your hint. Your minutes should say 30 because remember it started or ended, at 3:30. So you have to have your 30 in the minute spot. Okay, this is where you write your answer. Chase tells his friend that the time on the clock is 12 o'clock. Tell why Chase is wrong. Make it right. What did Chase forget when he looked at the clock? Did you realize that Chase forgot to notice that it was 12:30, not 12 o'clock? Remember, if it says 30 minutes, it means 12:30. Hope you had a great day learning about clocks. If you have any questions, let me know. Right now, I'm going to read a chapter from our story called Charlotte's Web. Now, if you recall from last week, they were just noticing Charlotte's egg sack. Special announcement, said the loudspeaker in a pompous voice. The management of the fair takes great pleasure in presenting Mr. Homer Zuckerman and his famous pig. The truck bearing this extraordinary animal is now approaching the infield. Kindly stand back and give the truck room to proceed. In a few moments, the pig will be unloaded in the special judging ring in front of the grandstand where a special award will be made. Will the crowd please make way and let the truck pass? Thank you. Ooh, I wonder what kind of special thing that Wilbur might get with Mr. Zuckerman. Wilbur trembled when he heard his speech. He felt happy, but dizzy. The truck crept along slowly in low speed. Crowds of the people surrounded it, and Mr. Arable had to drive very carefully in order not to run over anybody. At last he managed to reach the judge's stand. Avery jumped out and lowered the tailgate. I'm scared, whispered Mrs. Zuckerman. Hundreds of people are looking at us. Cheer up, replied Mrs. Arable. This is so fun. Unload your pig, please, said the loudspeaker. All together now, boys, said Mr. Zuckerman. Several men stepped forward from the crowd to help lift the crate. Avery was the busiest helper of all. Tuck in your shirt, Avery, said Mrs. Zuckerman, and tighten your belt. Your pants are coming down. Can't you see that I'm busy? Replied Avery. Look, cried Fern. There's Henry. Shh, don't shout, Fern, and don't point. Can't I please have some money? Asked Fern. Henry invited me to go on the Ferris wheel again, and only I just don't have any money left. He ran out of money. Mrs. Arable opened her handbag. Here, she said. Here's 40 cents. Now go get lost. Don't get lost. And be back at a regular meeting place by the pig pen very soon. So Fern raced off, ducking and dodging through the crowd in search of her friend Henry. The Zuckerman pig is now being taken from the crate, boomed the voice on the loudspeaker. Stand by for an announcement. Well, Templeton crouched under the straw at the bottom of the crate. What a lot of nonsense, muttered the rat. What a lot of fuss about nothing. Over in the pig pen, silent and alone, Charlotte rested her two front legs embraced the egg sack, and Charlotte could hear everything that was said on the loudspeaker. The words gave her courage. This was her hour of triumph. As Wilbur came out of the crate, the crowd clapped and cheered. Mr. Zuckerman took off his cap and bowed. Lurvy pulled his big handkerchief from his pocket and wiped the sweat from the back of his neck. Avery knelt in the dirt by Wilbur's side, busily stroking him and showing him off. Mrs. Zuckerman and Mrs. Arable stood on the running board of the truck. Ladies Ladies and gentlemen, we now present Mr. Homer Zuckerman's Distinguished Pig. The fame of this unique animal had spread to the far corners of the earth, attracting many valuable tourists to our great state. Many of you will recall that never-to-be-forgotten day last summer when the writing appeared mysteriously on the spider's web in Mr. Zuckerman's barn, calling attention of all and everybody to the fact that this pig was completely out of the ordinary. This miracle has never been fully explained, although learned men have visited the Zuckerman pig pen to study and observe the phenomenon. In the last analysis, we simply know that we are dealing with supernatural forces here, and we should all feel proud and grateful. In the words of the spider's web, ladies and gentlemen, this is some pig. Everybody started to cheer. Wilbur blushed, and he stood there perfectly still and tried to look his best. This magnificent animal, continued the loudspeaker, is truly terrific. Look at him, ladies and gentlemen. Note the smoothness and the whiteness of his coat. Observe the spotless skin, the healthy pink glow of his ears and snout. It's the buttermilk, whispered Mrs. Arabelle to Mr. Zuckerman. Note the general radiance of this animal. Then remember the day when the word radiant appeared clearly on the web. Whence came this mysterious writing? Not from the spider, we can rest assured that, but spiders are very clever at weaving their webs. But needless to say, spiders cannot write. Oh, they can't they? Murmured Charlotte to herself. Ladies and gentlemen, continued the loudspeaker, I must not take any more of your valuable time, but on behalf of the governors of the fair, I have the honor of awarding a special prize of $25 to Mr. Zuckerman, together with a handsome bronze medal suitably engraved in token of our appreciation of the part played by this pig, that this radiant, this terrific, this humble pig is attracting so many visitors to our great county fair. Wilbur had been feeling dizzier and dizzier, though. This long complimentary speech. Whew. When he heard the crowd begin to cheer and clap again, he suddenly fainted away. His legs collapsed, his mind went blank, and he fell to the ground unconscious. What's wrong? What's going on, Zuckerman? What's the trouble with that pig? Avery was kneeling by Wilbur's head, stroking him, and Mr. Zuckerman was dancing about, fanning him with his hat. He's all right. He gets these spells. He's modest, can't stand all this praise. Well, we can't give a prize to a dead pig, said the loudspeaker. It's never been done. He isn't dead, said Zuckerman. He just fainted. He gets embarrassed easily. Run for some water, please, would you, Lurvy? Lurvy sprang from the judge's ring and disappeared. Templeton poked his head from the straw. He noticed that the end of Wilbur's tail was within reach. Well, Templeton grinned. I'll tend to this, he chuckled. He took Wilbur's tail into his mouth and bit it, and just as hard as he could, the pain revived Wilbur, and in a flash he was back on his feet. Ouch! He screamed. Hooray! The crowd started to cheer. He's up! The pig's up! Oh, good work, Zuckerman. That's some pig. Everyone was delighted. Mr. Zuckerman was the most pleased of all. He sighed with relief. Nobody had seen Templeton. The rat had done his work well. And now one of the judges climbed into the ring with the prizes. He handed Mr. Zuckerman 2 $10 bills and a $5 bill. 10 plus 10 is 20, plus 5 more is 25. Makes $25. Then he shook hands with Mr. Zuckerman while Wilbur blushed. Avery put out his hand and the judge shook his hands too. The crowd cheered. The photographer took Wilbur's picture. A great feeling of happiness swept over the Zuckermans and the Arabelles. This was the greatest moment in Mr. Zuckerman's life. It is deeply satisfying to win a prize in front of a lot of people. And as Wilbur was being shoved back into the crate, Lurvy came charging through the crowd carrying a pail of water. His eyes had a wild look, and without hesitating, he dashed the water at Wilbur. In his excitement, he missed the aim, and the water splashed all over Mr. Zuckerman and Avery, and they got soaking wet. Ah, for goodness sake, said Mr. Zuckerman, who was drenched. What ails you, Lurvy? Can't you see that the pig's okay? You asked for water, said Lurvy. I didn't ask for a shower bath, though, said Mr. Zuckerman. The crowd roared with laughter, and finally Mr. Zuckerman had to laugh too. And, of course, Avery was tickled to find himself so wet. Okay, you can see in the picture there that is Wilbur getting his recognition and Mr. Zuckerman getting his medal and money. Well, Avery immediately started to act like a clown after he got wet. He pretended he was taking a shower bath and he made funny faces, danced around, and rubbed imaginary soap under his armpits. And then he dried himself off with an imaginary towel. Avery, stop it, cried his mother. Stop showing off. But the crowd loved it. Avery heard nothing but the applause, so he liked being a clown in a ring, with everybody watching. When he discovered there was still a little water left in the bottom of the pail, he raised the pail high in the air and dumped the water on himself and made faces. The children in the grandstand screamed with appreciation. At last things calmed down, and Wilbur was loaded into the truck. Avery was led from the ring by his mother and placed on the seat of the truck to dry off. The truck, driven by Mr. Airbell, crawled slowly back to the pig pen, and Avery's wet trousers made a big wet spot on the seat. Okay, boys and girls, I'm going to stop there, and tomorrow we'll read our next chapter called Last Day. Now, my prediction is the last day at the fair. What do you think the last day is going to be about? Come back tomorrow on Tuesday, where we are going to finish that chapter and learn something new in a new story. Have a great day, boys and girls. Bye.